Tom Billy's jig. I know this from the playing of the Dannon, where they play it with the castle jig, and I am going to teach you the castle jig, and I'm going to make a play-along track for both, because they're two great jigs. I also note from the playing of Jerry O'Connor, it doesn't have a composer that I am aware of, and it is in one of the Rinke Kjol Nahairn Volume 2, I believe, compiled by Brendan Brannock. So not a lot is known about the tune. It's in the key of A mixolydian, which means that it doesn't really have a G sharp. As well as being a great jig to know, we're going to use it for a couple of different reasons. One, finger work on the left hand, pull-offs, hammer-ons and slides, and there's a few of those that are very tasty. And then in the third part, there are some broken arpeggiated chords. Now, that's a term that I learned from jazz banjo playing, or plectrum or tenor banjo playing as it's known. It's not an essential technique by any stretch of the imagination. It's something that's really nice to do if you're playing at home on your own. Mightn't necessarily fit in or even be heard in a session, for instance. But like everything else, pushing your technique will benefit your overall playing. So before we jump into the fun stuff, a big shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you. We have a bunch of new people on there at the moment, and I hope that you're enjoying all of the content that I'm making. If you want more information on that, the link is in the description and in the pinned comment below. First things first, go ahead and learn the simple tune. And for those folks that are on Patreon, I will have this fully notated in tab and in ABCs and in regular notation. And I highly recommend turning off all of those and learning it by ear. So I'm going to play it over a number of times with a kind of a reasonable jig rhythm. And what I suggest doing is looping it by phrase. So maybe every 2 bars or every 4 bars, allowing that music to wash over you. Learning it by ear is much more likely to embed that swing and bounce. The notes are brilliant and absolutely have them there to refer to, but do try, if you don't already, to immerse yourself in ear learning. It's very, very beneficial. So let's start with the fun stuff. We're going to play through it slowly, and I might stop and point out a few bits as we go. So here we go. Tom Billy's jig. Well, I mean, let's just start straight away with a pull-off. Now, the critical point with this pull-off is that we are playing a C sharp, fret 4 on the A string. I'll use my middle finger for that. And I think it's really important to hold that note on as you do the pull-off, which is F sharp to E. Now let me just play those 2 bars again, or maybe it's 1 bar. So you've just played this C sharp note. And it's still resonating, and you need to allow that to ring through to really create that little blend of music. You're going to kill it now when you hit the D, because that's the next note. But for that little moment, there's a lot going on that's really nice. These are subtle things, but they make a big difference to the overall sound of the banjo. So here's a double string slide. So we're going from C natural and G sharp, which is 3 and 4, depending on how you're reading it. And we're playing it and sliding it. So playing these two. And it's a crushed note as well, which means that we're sliding up into the rhythm. So let's hear all of that again. Right, packing it all in. So straight away we're going to put in this little variation, which we're going to go up to high C sharp, which is fret 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Fret, is that right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Fret 9. Whew. Up in the nosebleeds. So we're jumping up here. There's no need to do this. It just sounds really cool. Basically, we're coming back to this high A note from above. So that's one of the things, one of the tricks with putting in variations is that pick the note that you want to get to, have a look at the melody, and come at that note from a different direction than what the melody is doing already. Now, that's a very blunt, broad brush description of a variation, but start to have those ideas in your mind. So let's do all of that up to this point. So So you got an open A note and you do your jump at that point. All right, so from the A to the E, we're going to do a triplet on the A. And the next note in the tune is an open E, and that's when we jump back down. Now there's another opportunity here to hold down a note. So we're doing a G note, and then a 3-note triplet, B, C sharp, D, which is 2, 4, 5. And we want to hold on this high D, this fret 5, hold it on while we play the high G, which is fret 3 on the E string. And again, it's about creating that little zone of resonance. Sustain. So here's a little hammer-on. It achieves the same kind of sound as what we did with the double string slide. Okay, except this time we're doing it we're playing the high A, and we're going to play an E flat or a D sharp, because it's the same note. And we can either hammer it on or slide it. Now, because of where it is, for my fingers, it's easier to hammer it on. And again, it's a crushed note hammer on, so that D sharp note doesn't have its own value. We're crushing it into the E. I hope you're still with me. Another little slide here, which again, it's double strings, but we're using the open E for sustain. Very, very pleasing. C natural to C sharp. And then the last phrase of the first part. So we want to catch that high D again for sustain. So let's just pop through that first part one more time. Still with me? There's a good bit going on there, but it's really nice to play all of that. Second part. Second part runs straight up to the high B. Now, if you're able to do that with standard fingering and pivot off your ring finger onto the high B, I'm jealous. I am not able. I've just been doing it the other way for too long. So I just shift positions, which just means I move my left hand up a little bit. And I start with my index finger on fret 3. There's a little shimmy to get back down to the F sharp onto fret 2, but it's easy. Pull off. Switch up again. Now we're going to do a run of triplets. So there's a little bit of finger jumping involved in this one. Don't do those ones there, they're wrong. The middle one harmonically is a little bit off, but that's okay. We're just using it at speed, you won't even notice. And then we're into the glorious third part. And I say that because we're now coming into full A. And it feels like the big reprieve at the end, particularly because that second part goes into a slightly different chord sequence. You could say it's leaning into E minor, or a form a G modal maybe. But the refrain. So we're going to start the third part. Simplest is just to triplet it. But I think you really need to bring out that chord at the start. Now, as many of you know, I tune my G string up to A. Controversial in some places, and that's okay. You don't have to. And if you do, you can always tune it back down. It's not permanently stuck there. But for something like this, it's gorgeous because suddenly you have a low A sustain on the bottom. And that's when it really comes into its own. So, even if you don't have the low A, play a chord at the start with the E and the C sharp. And then switch the chord up from an A chord, which is 2 and 4, to 4 and 5. And this is a D chord. And if you do have the low A on the bottom, or of course you can always do the stretch. Now the broken arpeggios, what the hell are they? Let's have a look at the broken arpeggiated arpeggios. The broken arpeggiated arpeggios. The broken arpeggiated chords. Easier with a low A, but not essential. So the way that I do these, it's a kind of a cross strum, which of course is the only way to do a strum. It's essentially slowing down a full strum. So if we take it that that is the full strum chord, we're just going to break up the strum by arpeggiating the chord. So we're coming across each of the strings and trying to catch them individually through one downstroke. And I think that's probably what's key and what's very different to general down, up, down picking. Let me see, can I slow it down? I don't even know how to notate that, what it might even look like as the notes. The A chord is made by low A, E, C sharp, and E. And then the D chord, I'm keeping it with a low A on the bottom, F sharp, D, and then an open E, just for kind of sustained consistency. Have a crack at it. If you don't like it, that's fine. Just but if you want to challenge yourself, do try it. Now you can do them also on an upstroke, which might suit some people better. I don't know. In a lot of ways, that's easier to play. I don't really know why. So you're gonna, the note is C, right? C sharp. And then holding the A shape, you do a full 4-chord sweep. And then switch. And in actual fact, with that one, you could start off with almost a full chord. Now, let's get back to the tune, because while that is fun, it's also kind of silly. And it probably won't suit a lot of people. So, here's the tune. We're going to play it much slower, but with all the fun stuff in it. Alright, so there's loads of cool stuff in that. Now, if you really want to upset everybody, particularly guitar players and most maybe traditionalists, we can change the chords in the third part and put in an F sharp minor and a G, which probably doesn't even fit. It's an A. But if you're like me, I have a penchant for playing irritating chords. But it does create an extra level of tension that needs release. There you go. Tom Billy's jig. Thanks very much for watching. Keep an eye out for the Castle jig coming soon, and a bunch of play-along tracks featuring both jigs, Danann style.